Hello, my friends. My name is Stevie Cade, and welcome to Film Trigger. Eternals dropped this weekend, and people are just going weird with it. It's very divisive. Anyway, I went and saw it, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on this movie. What are you doing? Get out of here. Get. I had no desire to see this movie. No, none. Zero. Zilch. Zip. Zero interest to see this movie at all. I only went to go see it so I could take my son to go see it so he could be prepared for a live stream that he did with some YouTubers. And I was completely shocked. I really was. So without further ado, let's dive into my spoiler review of Eternals. As I just said, I was not excited to see this movie. So the fact that I came out of it and my first reaction was, yeah, it was pretty okay, I liked it, is flooring to me. Because I went into this movie thinking it was going to be another Dune situation. Remember Dune? Remember my review for Dune where I had no idea what the fuck I was talking about? Yeah, I thought I was going to have that same experience here because I know nothing about Eternals. And I was like, all right, here we go. Here's a whole bunch of names I can't pronounce and the words I don't recognize. Great. Can't wait. But it was not that. And actually comparing those two movies makes no sense now. With that being said, let's dive into what I did like about this movie. The character introduction and the mythology building. This was the part I thought I was going to have trouble with. There's 10 characters in this movie that we have to learn about. And especially if you're like me and you don't know anything about them, that sounds exhausting. But the movie did it pretty well. I mean, we didn't dive too much into each character because honestly, we couldn't have without this being like a two-parter or a 4-hour movie, which we know the mouse won't let that happen. But it worked. I know exactly who, what, why, where, and how the Eternals are whatever they are. I know just enough about them to continue with the story and understand what's going on. And it was pretty well explained. Like, I didn't feel left out for not knowing the source material of these characters. So, yeah, I think they did a great job with that. I mean, even the characters themselves, as I said, they weren't too hashed out, but that was okay. Ultimately, it was okay because the movie did a good job with me wanting more of them. I'm looking forward to seeing these characters return in future MCU films. It drew me in and I want more from them. And that's good. That's good storytelling. And there's a ground being laid here to bring them into the future of the MCU. And that's, obviously it's on my what I like list. I liked that because it made me understand that this film was, it had to happen in order to get these characters in there. I've often compared it to Captain Marvel. You had to have Captain Marvel movie, so when she shows up in Endgame, it makes sense. You know who she is. We don't have to spend time in that bigger movie to explain a new character. This movie, I feel, is that. It's just that. These characters are going to play a much bigger role in the future of the MCU, but we had to get this movie out to lay the ground for us to know who they are. So when they show up in Doctor Strange or wherever they're going to show up in the future, we know who that is, what their story is, and hopefully we can get more character development from them going forward. The actors, okay, this is a star-studded cast. It really is. There's a lot of amazing actors. I don't have any issues with any of the actors. So they all land on my what I like list. But I do have two honorable mentions. Two actors I thought just did such an amazing job that I wanted to bring it to light. Number one, Angelina Jolie. Yes, we all know she's an A-lister, but like, she could have easily phoned this in, and she didn't. She really just brought her game. Her character was dealing with some PTSD, sort of almost dementia-like symptoms, and she played that off really well. Like, she put her all into it. She was very emotional, and yeah, it just really stuck out. Like, because I know how these A-listers can be sometimes when they get into a Marvel movie or just a big, star-studded cast. Sometimes they'll phone it in. Angelina did not do that, and I really just enjoyed her time on screen. Not like you, Ramon, from Hit or Miss TV. You liked her on screen for a completely different reason. Creep. The other actor I want to bring in is Liam McHugh. She played Sprite, and this kid did freaking amazing. I literally, for most of the movie, I just sat there like, is this just an older woman, like, playing a kid? Her acting was like she's been doing this for 30 years. She was so good, so believable, so intense. She's 14 years old, and she just knocked it out of the park. Leah McHugh, awesome job. I can't wait to see what you do moving forward with movies in general.
So now that Captain Rogers and Iron Man are both gone, who do you think's gonna lead the Avengers?
I could lead them.
I also really enjoyed the tone this movie had. You know, it's not your copy and paste MCU, which is good. That's good. It's okay to have diversity like that in your MCU movies. It's okay. Everything will be fine, guys. Just deal with it. Okay? Good? All right. I'm sorry your feelings got hurt. Tonally, it was different than what we're used to for the MCU, but I'm okay with that. It wasn't too far off. I don't consider this, completely off base of the MCU and not throwing my shit in the air like, oh my God, what are they doing now? Oh, they've ruined the MCU. The MCU is ruined forever. No, it was just a director's vision that wasn't copy and paste some other vision. So sorry for creativity there, but sometimes it happens, in the world of art. I also really enjoyed this movie's diversity and inclusiveness. Now, I have heard some people saying, wow, this movie's a little too woke for me. Okay, let's hold back. Let's take those thoughts. Let's bring it back a little bit. My buddy Ramon from Hit or Miss TV, he described this really well. And I'm going to just jump on, piggyback on what he says. This movie has a very diverse cast and is very inclusive of all types of lives. Specifically, there is a gay couple in the movie. Oh, no, oh my God, the gay couple. It's 2021, why is this still an issue? It wasn't there in a woke sort of way. It was just there. It was just normal, like it should be. But people are wanting to call this a woke movie because they just happen to bring it up. Oh, they didn't even say it. Like, they're like, oh, hey, this is me and this is my husband. Okay, moving on. Like, they carried on with the story. It was never a narrative to play into. It was never brought up again. It was just, this is life now. And that's how it should be. So I think they did a great job being inclusive and not forcing it down your throat. Not making it like, see, we put a gay couple in here, huh? See that gay couple we have? Man, we're really woke. No, they didn't do that at all. It was very respectfully done. One of the last things I really liked about this movie is just how grand the visuals are. I'm one of those guys that loves seeing things that are bigger in life in movies. Like, so when the Celestial shows up at the very end and he's like standing in space, but you can see him from Earth, it was so big. It makes me feel so small, and I love those types of visuals. And then when the Celestial is coming out of the Earth, like it was like a fucking mountain, but it was just his fingertip. Like, it sounds sadistic, but I kind of wanted just to see him like burst out of there. I really did. But I love those larger than life visuals, so they did a great job with those. It made me feel like a 10-year-old kid, like eating my popcorn. Just why did I even do that? Okay. Moving on to what I'm on the fence about when it comes to this film. Even though I loved the characters, the lack of time spent with these characters. And I'll also play into this and what I don't like as well, because this concept does kind of go across the board with this film. But there are a lot of rich stories that need to be told here, and they're not. Again, 10 characters we have to be introduced and have stories with and story arcs, and I think they balanced that fairly well, but we just didn't dive deep. We didn't dive as deep as we probably should have. Again, this is one of those movies where they're just like, okay, here's the characters, now run with that. For example, Athena and Gilgamesh, the relationship that they have in this movie, it's something I think everybody would love to see the story dive deeper into. There's a movie just in that relationship itself, him becoming her protector or whatever they became. There was a lot of evolution that we missed that got them to where we saw them many years later. There was just a whole other story that I really wanted to see. But for all intents and purposes, it got us there. It got us to where we needed to be. I get it, but I really want to know more about how they got to it. Druig being another one of those characters that I really just wanted to know why he was where he was when we found him many years later. Like, why was he in this forest? Well, okay, I think we know why, but like, how did he get there? What was his purpose? What's he been doing for years? Because in this movie, he has a chip on his shoulder, and he kind of reminds me of that like Dr. Doom sort of presence. Like he's one person that if he turns evil, he can really fuck shit up. And it seems like he almost kind of lived that manipulative sort of way up until they brought him back. So again, that's a whole other movie that we could have watched or at least dove down into, but they had time constraints. So, but we'll talk more about the time constraints moving on. I just wish we had more time to spend with these characters. The obvious Zack Snyder inspiration. The director, Chloé Zhao, made it very clear that she was inspired by Zack Snyder, especially Man of Steel, which is fine. I love inspiration. That's how art works. Art creates artists, which creates art, which creates artists, and it just keeps going because people are just inspired by the art they've seen before, and they do it in their own way and move on. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And there's a few elements in this movie, and it's almost episodic storytelling, which ironically episodic because there's only one movie, but it seemed like it could have went that route, multiple movies of Eternals. But I did recognize this sort of episodic way of storytelling that Zack Snyder has as well, which is great, perfect, beautiful, good job. What I didn't like, and why I'm on the fence with this aspect, is there's some parts in this movie that are just blatantly copy and paste Zack Snyder stuff, especially with Icarus. I'm saying that right. Icarus? I don't know. The Superman guy in the movie, who's not Superman, but they clearly call him Superman in the movie as a joke, because he's Superman. Okay, so he is obviously written as a Superman character. It's not going to be too hard to fall into, things we've seen before with Superman. So that's just a problem that, Chloé had to deal with on her own. But I'm talking about blatant copy and paste from dialogue, oh, don't fly too close to the sun. Lex Luthor said that in BVS about Superman, and they said it multiple times. And matter of fact, that's how he dies in this movie. He flies into the sun. But even more so visually, like when Icarus screams after killing Ajax, that's pretty much the Zod neck snap scream in Man of Steel. That's exactly what that was. Blatant copy and paste. And also, speaking of Man of Steel, since she's the one who called herself out, saying that was one of her big inspirations for this film, the character himself was unnecessarily a merger of Superman and Zod. Now, I listened to some other YouTubers who are actually very in the know of Eternals, the comic books and what have you, and they said that him turning into a bad guy was not really part of his character in the comic books. So this, to me, was Chloe's way of actually taking Superman and then Zod, that integrity that Zod has of my whole sole purpose for living is for the good of my people. That's what Icarus does in this movie. So he has all this Superman Boy Scout sort of powers, but then he has this integrity at the end to kind of put a twist in the movie. And it was Zod. It was Superman and Zod hybrid put together. It was those two characters from Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. That's what made this character in this movie. Again, I respect inspiration, but little low-hanging fruit there with just pretty much just stealing that idea from him. The cinematography was amazing. It was great. It was beautiful. So why am I on the fence about it? Well, I'm on the fence about it because of the fight scenes. Just a couple of them, but it was... So Chloé used this natural lighting, very difficult way to shoot a film. It's a very indie way to shoot a film, but it looks great on camera. Unless you have a fight scene like around dusk, where you're kind of backlit with the sunset and not really lit with anybody. It just looks like a bunch of shadows moving around. Yeah, some of those fight scenes were very difficult for me to watch. Or let me rephrase that. Very difficult for me to see what's happening or what's going on exactly. Now, I will leave this up for maybe changing in the future, because the theater I saw it at, and because this movie was so dark, I couldn't help but notice I could see like the glare of the floor lights on the screen. So that was very distracting for me. So maybe if I watch that at home, I won't have that issue. But theater experience, the cinematography, even though it was great, really messed with me during the fight scenes. So that's why I put it on the fence. The Deviants weren't as good as they could have been. And I'm talking like story-wise and looks. They're just your basic, here's scary-looking bad guys. Like, okay. And then like he just randomly turned into a humanoid hybrid thing without any explanation at all. A little lost on that one. But it seems like the Deviants have a pretty rich story here. And almost like you feel bad for them because they're actually not as bad as they're actually kind of good guys because they knew by killing the humans that the Celestial wouldn't wake up. So, like, they were trying to keep the Celestial asleep, and they just had a really fucked up way of doing it. Hence why the Eternals had to come in and stop them from eating humans. So, yeah, they were kind of like, they got the short end of the stick in the movie, but the characters themselves just weren't portrayed as that intense. They, again, just random, scary, ugly-looking thing because that's what we need to get to the next scene. Okay. Moving right along with what I don't like about this movie. Random jokes. This is MCU being like, listen, Chloe, we're going to let you tell the story the way you want to tell it. But here's an envelope of jokes that you need to insert sporadically throughout the film. No, it doesn't matter when or where. Just do it. Thanks. Very studio forced. The CGI. Okay. Why can I harp on the CGI when I've already talked about how much I just love the how visually grand this movie is? Well, there's one character in this movie that looked so freaking bad that I have to bring it up, and I'm going to talk about it right now. Pip the Troll. Yeah, he shows up in a mid-credit scene, and he looks terrible. It looks terrible. It was so cartoony. It was unbelievable. It was worse than when they had a Banner in the Hulk suit in Infinity War, and you could tell he was obviously just put in there last second. Yeah, it was way worse than that. It just didn't look any sort of natural, or I don't know. It was almost like it was a puppet, but CGI puppet. So there was no reason for it to look like a puppet and also be CGI. As a matter of fact, since we're talking about the mid-credits scene, the entire introduction of Thanos' brother, Eros? Is that his rapper name? Eros? It was lackluster. It was, okay, here he is. We're just going to shoehorn this character in because why not? Just throw it in there. Fuck both post-credit scenes. The one after that, the one at the very end of the movie where you get to see, here, Blade. Only reason why I knew that was Blade is because my son told me beforehand. Otherwise, I would have no clue who this was or what the fuck was going on, or even I still don't know the importance of the sword, and that's me. So I guess that's one thing in this movie that they did just not explain very well. I had to be in the know for that one post-credit scene, but the fact that they have Blade say something but not show him, come on, man, it's already a post-credit scene. We stayed through the whole credits for this, and you're not even going to show me. You're going to send me an audio clip. Great. Really bugged the shit out of me. And the last thing I'm going to talk about when it comes to what I don't like about this movie is the overall runtime. I know this could bleed into what I talked about on the fence with the character development. I wish they could have dove deeper into the characters, but this needs its own little hate, in my opinion, because this movie could have been a part 2 series. It should have been, or just pull the trigger and make it like a 3.5-4 hour long movie. Zack Snyder did it, but I was just very disappointed in what mythology that could have been told here. The diving deeper into the characters, how much more we could have gotten out of that if they just weren't but we got to get this movie out so we can really introduce them in other movies. So can we just get a rush on this? Because I feel like Chloé Zhao actually was trying to tell this story, like I said before, episodic kind of way. It was going to take more than one movie to tell this story the way it should. And it just missed the mark. And I think she did good with what she had, but I'm putting the fact that they probably put a very specific runtime for her to follow as what I don't like about this movie. Overall, again, my expectations going into this were dog shit. I was not looking forward to it, and my good buddy Durbin of the channel Durbania said, Steve, when you go into this movie, have the lowest set of expectations, so maybe you can just only go up from there. And man, I really did. I went up from those expectations because I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie overall. Yes, it has some issues. Needed more time to tell the story, but with what it had, it did pretty well. And my first reaction coming out of this movie was, I don't know if I ever need to see it again. And I was thinking maybe C-, something like that. But the more I think about this film, the more I'm intrigued by it. The more I want to go watch it again and kind of pick it apart and dive deeper. Maybe some little nuggets of mythology that I missed. And I think that's just wonderful.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
There you go, guys. There's my review for Eternals, the movie I had no plans on seeing. Please let me know your thoughts of this movie down below. Do you think it was great? Do you think it was terrible? Do you think this movie is just too woke for you? I'm very curious of your opinions. Also, be sure to check out some more of my videos. And as always, stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace.